really big ones. The Supreme Court is weighing the future of race conscious admission policies in two separate lawsuits against Harvard University and the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. They are, in my world, what? You know who they are, McMorey. They are the Tar Heels, of course. Go Heels.
Yes.
Heels. Now, sidebar, how can I say go Heels? Because I am a Tar Heel basketball fan, lifelong fan of their basketball program, and I am an Alabama football fan. Yes, you can be both at the same time.
That's so convenient. That's great.
Yeah, now
you do have the you do have the ties, so.
I do have the ties.
The ties to both places.
Oh, yes.
It's not like some bandwagon type situation.
Well, people say I'm an Alabama football bandwagoner. Now,
yeah.
But whatever. I've been now a fan since 2004. So what is that?
Almost 20 years. I mean, come on.
Not a bandwagon here, friend. Not a bandwagon. But I digress. Again, the Supreme Court weighing the future of race-conscious admission policies at these universities. Harvard University and the University of North Carolina, UNC at Chapel Hill. Colleges nationwide are watching closely for how the decision may require changes to their admission practices. It's an affirmative action kind of thing, and it could upend those programs nationwide by overturning the court's 2003 landmark decision. It's called Grutter versus Bollinger, that allowed the narrowly tailored use of race in admission decisions to further a compelling interest in obtaining the educational benefits that flow from a diverse student body. Does that make any sense to you? Me neither. I'm teasing. No, I mean, basically, I believe that is saying we're going to admit you because you help us with diversity. So you're an Asian American, so we're going to admit you over this white person who may have better grades, may be more involved in the community, but because you're an Asian, you'll be admitted. I think that's what that means. Or whatever. Because you're Latino, you're going to be admitted. Because you're a female, I'll even go that. Well, that's not race, is it? Because you get the idea. It's affirmative action. Students for Fair Admissions, led by an anti-affirmative action advocate named of Edward Blum, has been challenging the two schools' policies for nearly 10 years. In the case against Carolina, a public university, I think we all know that, SFFA, which is, again, Students for Fair Admissions, argued that race-conscious admission policies don't comply with the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. But since Harvard is not bound by the 14th Amendment because it's a private university, SFFA challenges the policy as a violation of Title VI, I believe. I think that's 6, of the Civil Rights Act. Title VI prohibits programs that receive federal funds from engaging in racial discrimination. And SFFA contends Harvard's admission practices discriminate against Asian Americans. So there's that. And I think I've got all that right. So there's that Supreme Court decision we're watching. We're watching the Supreme Court on student debt today. Millions of student loan borrowers eligible for Biden's debt relief program, they're bracing for the court's decision on whether the plan can move ahead or not. You have 6 GOP states and 2 individual borrowers that are challenging the relief as exceeding the administration's authority. Education Secretary Miguel Cardona has attempted to justify the plan by tying it to emergency authority during the pandemic. The administration cites the Higher Education Relief Opportunities, or the HEROES Act, which Congress passed after the 9/11 terror attacks. The law gives the education secretary authority to either waive or modify federal student financial assistance programs, quote, as the Secretary deems necessary in connection with a war or other military operation or national emergency. The conservative majority appeared skeptical at oral arguments that the HEROES Act authorized the hundreds of billions of dollars in debt relief. But beyond the merits of the case, the justices are first weighing whether any of the challengers even had legal standing at all. At least one of the challengers must have standing for the court to even strike down the plan. So we are watching that decision with the Supreme Court. There's also same-sex wedding websites. That is a ruling that the Supreme Court is looking at, right? So the justices, they're weighing a challenge to Colorado's public accommodation law, which prevents businesses that serve the public from discriminating based on sexual orientation and other protected characteristics. So there's an evangelical Christian. Her name is Lori Smith. She runs a web design company. She filed a lawsuit against the state, arguing that the law would amount to a violation of her First Amendment rights to be able to practice her religion, right? Smith is opposed to gay marriage, but she wants to expand her business to offer wedding websites. Colorado's law would mandate that she do so for both same-sex and opposite-sex couples. The justices are weighing whether Colorado's public accommodation law, as applied to Smith and other artists, if you will, compel their speech in violation of the First Amendment. It marks the second time the High Court has considered a challenge to Colorado's law. So she's doing this from a freedom of speech standpoint, I guess. I would argue it from a freedom, to practice your religion. But okay, whatever. But that is what the Supreme Court is looking at. They're also looking at employee religious accommodations. Now, this one is very interesting to me because there is a former postal worker who has sued the U.S. Post Office or Postal Service after he was disciplined for missing scheduled Sunday shifts to deliver Amazon packages. His name is Gerald Groff, Groff. He's a Christian, and he says working Sundays would violate his religious beliefs to rest during the Sabbath. So Groff ultimately opted to resign from his job rather than get fired from his job. So he also decided to sue. So he contends that the Postal Service was required to accommodate his religious views under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits employers from discriminating against an employee because of their religion unless it would cause an undue hardship. The court is now poised to clarify what exactly constitutes an undue hardship. So there you go. There is a lower court decision that defined the standard as more than a de minimis burden, which I guess is a Latin legal term there. Groff and the Justice Department, representing the Postal Service, agree that the language shouldn't be taken literally, but they sparred on the new verbiage the court should replace it with and whether this particular decision should be outright overturned. All right, so there you go. Now we get into legalese that's boring. Election law. Here's another one we're looking at. This one we really should look at because there's a dispute over North Carolina's congressional map, and it could change the game for partisan gerrymandering fights and other federal election court battles. I think didn't a decision come down not too very long ago in Alabama about how they changed their map? It's known as the independent state legislature theory. North Carolina Republican lawmakers are asking the justices to rule that state legislatures have exclusive authority to set federal election rules under the Constitution. A state court struck down North Carolina's GOP-drawn congressional map, But the Republican lawmakers argue the court has no constitutional authority to issue its decision. So we are watching that. Oh, it looks like the court has ruled in that North Carolina congressional map deal. So here's what we're going to do. I'm just getting that headline. Let's take a break here. And when we come back, we'll talk about that and see how the court actually ruled, since that breaking news just popped up. Stick around. I'm Pamela Furr. We're on the Supreme Watch on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
The Department of Justice Inspector General report is out on the suicide of Jeffrey Epstein. We'll go over some of the details at 9:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
That is very interesting. I can't wait to hear about that. Right now, we're talking about, we're on Supreme Watch. So we have learned that the Supreme Court has ruled today that judges do have the power to override state legislatures when it comes to how federal elections are carried out. Now, I'm going to stop right there. I am a states' rights girl, and this just makes me mad. Now they may be justified. There may be constitutional reasons, and I trust the Supreme Court to know what they're doing. You know, the Supreme Court justices, they certainly know a lot more than Dollar Store Reba knows over here. But I believe in states' rights, fundamentally at my core. So already I'm going, All right, so at issue in Moore versus Harper was a constitutional dispute over the power of a state court to regulate federal elections. In this case, gerrymandered redistricting maps. Some state lawmakers were seeking a favorable interpretation of the independent state legislature theory, which is called ISL theory, asking for near total control over regulation of federal elections for president and members of Congress. The case went to the High Court after a North Carolina state court threw out a GOP-drawn congressional map first submitted in November of 2021. And what happened, the maps were deemed unconstitutional by a majority Democrat state Supreme Court, with the GOP map seemingly giving the Republican-led legislature an advantage in the state's 14 congressional districts. So what the state court did, they decided to split it up evenly, like 7 districts were more Democrat and 7 other districts were more Republican. And so I'm looking at it as just evening it out here. The GOP legislature asked the Supreme Court to invoke the ISL doctrine, which hinges on the interpretation of the Constitution to mean that state legislatures have unqualified authority to decide how elections are conducted, absent almost any state judicial review. I am a states' rights girl. This hurts me. Article 1 of the Constitution reads, the times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. I mean, that's pretty plain, isn't it? That's pretty plain and simple to me. GOP advocates argue the case could have implications on the security of elections nationwide, as a decision siding with the North Carolina Supreme Court could give additional authority to state and federal courts to intervene in future election proceedings, especially as we're looking forward to the 2024 presidential election. And I don't have the number of states in front of me, but you have various numbers of states. Your senators are being reelected this presidential year. In fact, I believe Marsha Blackburn is one of them. I believe so. You have obviously all the representatives, the House of Representatives, every 2 years, they're up for re-election. And so you've got that whole thing. And you have how many Democrat-run states versus how many Republican-run states. This could be a problem. Many on the other side of the aisle, meaning the liberals, viewed the independent state legislature doctrine as too broad, arguing the end result could negatively affect democracy as a whole and open the door to further gerrymandering in a political climate with low voter trust. That's where we stand, though, on this issue. The Supreme Court has ruled. Now, I am obviously not a constitutional lawyer. Obviously, I wish that I had Matt Murphy's attorney on A, because I have a crush on his voice, and B, he could probably explain this a little
Jay could do a good
better.
job.
Yeah, Jay St. Clair. I'm assuming Matt will probably talk to him at some point this week. Maybe this will come up, but I find this very interesting. As a states' rights girl, I'm not happy about this, but I certainly don't want any state to be unfair when it comes to districts. I think personally here in Tennessee, the way our maps have been redrawn, it does seem to me to be a little bit more fair overall. I mean, the 5th Congressional District forever and a day favored Democrats. Now it seems to be spread out, to me, a lot better. I think in the last election, Davidson County decided not to show up because they're like, what the heck for? There's nobody, anyway, there's nobody running that we want. So Democrats really didn't show up. You put a race together where you have a true Democrat contender against a true Republican contender in that district, and then I think you could see how it is a little bit more equitable, if you will, with more Republicans in that district as opposed to just about all Democrats. I can say that as a former District 5 person who used to live in District 5. All right, it is 9:30. That, you know what? I bored myself with all that. We're going to move on. We're going to talk about Donald Trump. Now, we're still watching. We are 100% still watching the Supremes because they're going to make more decisions today, but we'll certainly pass on any breaking news from the Supreme Court if it happens throughout the show. When we come back, Donald Trump. That audio has been conveniently released today where he was bragging about some things in, I'm using the air quotes, classified documents. So now we can hear what he actually said instead of reading transcripts. This is what has gotten him into some legal trouble. Is it justified? We'll talk about it at 9:35 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got a crash blocking your way in West Nashville. The right 3 lanes are blocked of 40 eastbound right there at 46th Avenue and 51st Avenue, exit 205. The Department of Justice Inspector General says the Federal Bureau of Prisons failed in multiple ways that led to Jeffrey Epstein's suicide. Epstein died by hanging at Manhattan's Metropolitan Correctional Center while he was awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges. Russian mercenary leader Yevgeny Prigozhin is now in Belarus after aborting his mutiny on Vladimir Putin. Prigozhin said he was not seeking to depose Putin, but instead was acting to protect his Wagner mercenary force from being destroyed by the defense ministry. And election 2024, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis wants to resurrect the wall, and he wants to change the Constitution.
But I think it's wrong that people would use our country for things like birth tourism. So we're going to be removing the incentives to come into this country illegally.
DeSantis visiting the border community of Eagle Pass, Texas yesterday. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity, like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. Let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, what we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. It was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose. And that was distribution toward the end of life. When somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, call us for a free 15-minute phone call or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615-851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 9:38. I'm Pamela Furr. Thank you for being here today on this Tuesday, on this Should we play the tune? Should we do it? Should we do it? Because I was going to say on this Tuesday, and it's already 80 degrees outside, y'all. The heat is definitely on. Holy smokes. Literally.
It's nuts. Out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. Well, at least that's what it feels like to me, out of nowhere.
It's almost as if it's summer.
I mean, who would have thunk it? But I am reading that they expect over 90 cities to break their heat index records, right? That's pretty crazy. And guys, I'm going to Texas. I'm not just going to Texas. I'm going to the southernmost part of Texas. I'm going right there at the Mexican border. I leave first thing tomorrow morning.
You got a sun hat or something?
I guess I should go buy one. Target, here I come after the show.
The highest SPF in a sun hat.
I mean, I can't. SPF does nothing for me.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Just
so
keep
I'll but, and I'm like Winona, even though I'm dollar store Reba, like Winona, I wear black clothes. That's just me, right?
Yeah.
It's the worst thing you could wear if you visit or live in Texas.
Ooh, it's going to be steamy.
I'm going to hell is basically what's happening. But I am going to I'm going to McAllen, Texas, and I'm going to get a look at the border for myself. I mean, I sit here and talk about border issues all the time. Why not go and see for yourself? So I'm going with my friends with Americans for Prosperity to get a look-see, as they say. So
good for you.
I'll have something to report back when I get back.
Seriously.
I'm going to try to call in at least on one of the shows, just depending on my schedule. It's going to be kind of a jam-packed schedule, but check my socials. I'll post things there. Maybe do a live video of people crossing illegally. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't know what you're going to encounter. So that should be interesting. I was going to say a lot of fun, but I don't see fun being had in 175-degree temperatures.
It'll be educational.
It will definitely be educational. All right. Now, let's move on here. Donald Trump. Need I say more?
And that's it.
That's it.
Let's go to break.
All right, the audio has been released. Now you're asking yourself, what audio is that? Well, it's the audio that the mainstream media, have been talking about for, I guess, about a month or so regarding, quote, classified documents. The specifics are, it's audio from a 2021 interview, July 2021 interview. So we're talking 2 years ago, for people working on the memoir for the former president's once chief of staff, Mark Meadows. So they were journalists that were there. Attendees, according to the indictment, were Trump, two of his staffers, a writer, and a publisher. And when I play this audio for you, it sounds like it was a bunch of women, and they were allegedly shown classified information about the plan of attack on Iran. And I have to tell you, listening to this audio, I just want to go, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? Why are you doing this? Have you lost your mind? But you can decide for yourself. I think it's about 2 minutes here. I'm going to play it. I know Dan played it. I'm sure other hosts will play it. And then I'll kind of give you my take here on the whole thing and Donald Trump's response to this audio being released. Now, did CNN just get this audio, or have they been holding on to it for what they believe was the more appropriate time? Don't know. Or did they just get it? Don't know. But this is, I find it at least interesting, and at least we know what kind of set all this off, right? So here's the audio in full.
That's right, trying to overthrow your election.
Well, with Milley, let me see that. I'll show you an example. He said that I wanted to attack Iran. Isn't it amazing? I have a big pile of papers. This thing just came up. Look. This was him. They presented me this. This is off the record, but they presented me this. This was him. This was the Defense Department and him. Wow. We looked at some. This was him. This wasn't done by me. This was him. All sorts of stuff. It's pages long. Look. Wait a minute. Let's see here.
Yeah.
I just found, isn't that amazing?
Lots of chicks
This
there.
totally wins my case, you know. Except it is like highly confidential, secret. There's a secret information. But look at this. You attack, and
Hillary would print that out all the time, you know.
she'd send
Private
it,
email.
she'd send it to Anthony Weiner, the pervert.
Please print.
By the way, isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
I was just saying, because we were talking about it. And, you know, he said he wanted to attack Iran and what? These are the
You did.
papers.
It's pretty
This was done by the military, given to me. I think we can probably, right?
I don't know. We'll have to see. Yeah, we'll have to try to figure out
Declassify. See, as president, I could have declassified
Yeah.
it. Now I can't, you know, but this is classified.
Ah, see, that's
Isn't that interesting?
that's the
It's
phrase.
so cool. I mean, it's so. Look, here I have, and you probably almost didn't believe me, but now you believe me.
No, I believe
It's
you.
incredible, right?
No,
All right, so there you go. So what gets Donald Trump in trouble all the time? When he starts to brag, you know, and his ego is out there. When I first heard this, I guess it came out last night. I'm going, man, why are you doing this? You gave them ammunition. Do I think it rises, though, to the charge of espionage? Of course not. How insane can you be? These were a bunch of women he was trying to impress. He was trying to impress this writer and this publisher. He was trying to continue to impress two of his staffers, I suppose. But if it was classified information, what are you doing, man? He even admitted it was classified. Now, whether or not it was or not, or he was just, again, going, hey, look, here's the document, but didn't actually let them hold it or read it, I don't know. There's no video of this to my knowledge. Trump said in the recording, these are the papers, when referring to something he claimed was highly confidential. The exchange was one of two, the indictment noted, when claiming Trump showed classified information to those without security clearances. Now, again, does that rise to espionage? Of course not. Let me say that again. No, of course not. At this point, though, today, Donald Trump is saying that this audio actually exonerates him. I'm not really sure how. I have to be honest with you. I don't know. Well, anyway, let me finish with what Donald Trump said in response to this. On Truth Social, he said that the tape had been spun and actually proved his innocence. I don't get that, but okay. He posted the deranged special prosecutor, Jack Smith, working in conjunction with the DOJ and FBI, illegally leaked and spun a tape and transcript of me, which is actually an exoneration, rather than what they would have you believe. This continuing witch hunt is another election interference scam. They are cheaters and thugs. All right, y'all. I have to be careful. I'm not bashing Trump, but I don't know that tape exonerates him. Does it? Does it to you? Are you surprised by what you heard? Do you think that this then shows that Donald Trump is at least guilty of showing classified material to people who don't have a security clearance? Which should get him really a slap on the hand. I mean, you're showing it to journalists and publishers at this point. Were they going to use it in the book? Were they going to try to copy it? I don't know. But I don't know. You tell me, after listening to this, what do you think I'd like to know? 615-737-9986 is the phone number. 615-737-9986. You can also super text us as well. After hearing the audio for yourself, do you think, Donald Trump's in big trouble now? Or do you think do you agree with Donald Trump? This is still part of the witch hunt and it actually exonerates him. More to come on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Got a crash west of downtown that is backing up eastbound of 40. The crash is in the Nations, and it's got the left 3 lanes blocked there of I-40 going eastbound. Department of Justice watchdog has unveiled a report on the suspicious death of sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Details coming up at 10 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Did they say Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself?
You'll just have to wait to find out.
Remember all of that? Everybody and their brother, Epstein didn't kill himself. Yeah. Epstein didn't do it. You know, everywhere you turn, somebody's doing an interview somewhere and some famous person would end the interview. Oh, by the way, Epstein didn't kill himself, and then just walk off. Remember all that?
I do remember all that.
Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Thank you, Ken. We will look forward to your report at 10 o'clock. Meanwhile, we're talking about the audio that has been released of Donald Trump speaking to a reporter, a publisher, and 2 staffers regarding some sort of classified information that he had regarding possibly going to war with or attacking Iran. He bragged about having that documentation. You heard the audio. I can play. I'll just play one little part of it here.
Except it is like highly confidential, secret. This is secret information. But look at this. You attack.
All right, you heard papers. Now, I guess the question is, was he showing them the classified information or just showing them that he's holding a document that says classified? I mean, I don't know. Did he hand it to them and they looked at it and that's all the rustling of the papers? I don't know what. I mean, I have lots of questions. 615-737-9986. I want your thoughts. What do you think about the DJ Trump? Anyway.
DJT? Yeah.
Did I get it wrong? DJT. There you go.
DJT,
All right,
yeah.
Tim, you're on the line. Hello.
Hey, man. Hey, Pamela. How are you?
Fine. How are you?
I'm sorry. I love you. You know that. Hey, so, Donald Trump is a lot of things. But one thing he is not dumb. He's not stupid. He was a great president. I have a lot of respect for him. I think it is a continuation of a witch hunt. They've been after him ever since he threw his hat in the ring to run for president. And they've dogged him the whole time that he was, and they've dogged him since he is not president. So it's a continuation of the witch hunt.
Gotcha.
That's all I got to say.
All right.
I'm gonna listen to you.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it. 615-737-9986. Eli is on the line. Hello, Eli.
Well, hello. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. So my thoughts, I think Trump is his own worst enemy, right? When he ran for president, he wasn't in my top probably 10 for the primaries.
Right.
But once he was chosen, obviously I was picking him over Hillary.
Right.
I thought he was going to be way more liberal. I told all my friends he's going to be more liberal than the conservatives think and more conservative than the liberals think. So I was really surprised with how conservative he ended up being. Loved his policies, but he's his own worst enemy. He just can't. He's got too thin a skin. So in this particular case, I think it's highly likely he was just bragging. If this would have been prosecuted under Hillary or other people, I think it's probably prosecutable. But the fact that it has never been prosecuted under Hillary or anybody else, I don't see how it could be.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere. Or how can you rule him guilty if you didn't in these other cases? Yeah, Eli.
That's exactly right.
Thank you very much for your phone call. I appreciate it today. I know some others, Richard, Sean, all of you guys, hold on the line. We'll get to you after the news at 10 o'clock. Getting lots of comments on the super text line as well. I'll read those here in just a minute, too. Stick around. I am Pamela Furr on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
10 o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Right now, the crash is causing the biggest delays. You've got that one that's going to be west of downtown, going into downtown, 40 eastbound. You've got the right 3 lanes blocked there in the Nations. And then a crash in Rutherford County is stop-and-go traffic 24 westbound between Sam Ridley Parkway and Bell Road. That's a 22-minute delay. The Department of Justice watchdog has unveiled a report on the suspicious death of sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
In August 2019, Jeffrey Epstein hanged himself with an orange noose fashioned from a sheet or a shirt. When a horrified guard at the federal jail in Manhattan saw Epstein dangling from the bed, a new report from the Justice Department's Inspector General said the guard blurted out that he and his partner were going to be in a lot of trouble. Epstein's suicide followed an attempt a month earlier, and the report said the Bureau of Prisons failed to make sure he had a cellmate. The report also said Epstein made an unmonitored phone call, telling officers he was calling his mother, who had been dead for some time.
That's Aaron Kotursky reporting. In our nation's capital, a Senate report blasts the FBI and Department of Homeland Security for not acting on threats before the January 6th riot.
Gary Peters, chairman of the Senate Homeland Security Committee, says the attack was planned in plain sight and that intelligence agencies completely dropped the ball.
That's Pierre Thomas reporting. The report says FBI and DHS should have put Capitol Police, D.C. Police, and others on notice to be ready for large-scale violence. Hundreds of flights delayed or canceled altogether, many of them in the Northeast today. Stephanie Ramos at Newark International Airport with the story.
800 flights nationwide have already been canceled just this morning. New York City area airports, they've experienced the highest number of delays and cancellations among major airports the last 2 days. Travelers stuck in airports for hours, some for days. Torrential rains and tornado warnings along the East Coast set off wave after wave of ground stops and backups at some of the nation's busiest airports.
That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 10:05. I am Pamela Furr. Thank you for being with us today on this hot Tuesday. It's 80 degrees. It's not even 10 o'clock. Or it is 10 o'clock. It's not even 11 o'clock yet, and it's 80 degrees outside. That's all right. We are cool customers around these parts, so we'll get through it. 615-737-9986 is the phone number as we continue to talk about the audio, the so-called smoking gun that the feds have on Donald Trump regarding classified information. I have so many questions, guys, so I played the audio, the full audio for you earlier. I'm not going to play the whole thing again, but here's a snippet just in case you're just arriving to the party.
Declassified. See, as president, I could have declassified.
Yeah.
Now I can't, but this is classified.
Now we have a problem.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, this is classified, he said. I could have declassified it when I was president, but I can't, now I can't. So that's the smoking gun. And I have to be honest with you. I don't like it. I don't like hearing that. What is he doing? I want to shake him. What the hell? You keep giving them ammunition. Why are you doing this? But I don't think it rises to the level that the feds have come after him. 38 charges? 37 charges. He pled guilty to them. He thinks this tape, though, exonerates him. I'm not sure how. Then again, it may exonerate him for espionage charges. A caller earlier made the comment, look, Donald Trump's smart. He knows what he's doing. If so, he wouldn't have been caught on tape saying those things. Because you are not supposed to be showing classified documents, top secret documents to anyone without a security clearance. Remember, that's what we hated. One of the many reasons we hated Hillary Clinton. Because classified, secret, all of that documentation was on an unsecured server, and people on the other end of the emails didn't have the security clearances to view that material. So if we're going to be upset about that with Hillary, we have to be consistent and be upset about this with Donald Trump. Now, my question is, did he actually show them the classified information or just show them a document with a cover page that said classified and then just rattled around the papers saying, look, it shows that Millie, blah, 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 blah. See, it's in this document, but did he actually show them the information? What you're going to have to do, I guess, in the upcoming trial for Donald Trump is you're going to have to call the witnesses that were there. It was a writer who was writing a book for Mark Meadows, his memoirs. That's why he was interviewing, or she was interviewing Donald Trump. The publisher was also there, and there were two staffers. You'll have to call them as witnesses to find out, did they actually see the information in those papers? What do you think, though? After hearing all of this, are you concerned that this is a smoking gun? Or do you think this exonerates Donald Trump? That's what he's saying on Truth Social. And it's all continues to be part of the witch hunt. 615-737-9986. Let's go to Richard, who's on the line. Thank you, Richard, for holding.
Yeah, hey, hello, Pamela.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm really concerned and worried about this because I'm afraid that Donald Trump, in his recklessness and his carelessness, has divulged important secrets in our war against Iran.
I didn't know we were at war with Iran.
What? We're not at war with Iran? So then why is this document even classified?
I can't answer that.
That's all I got to tell you.
I mean, I can't answer that, but if it's classified, it's classified. It apparently, I guess, was laying out the idea that we would strike, a preemptive kind of strike against Iran, I suppose. It was a Pentagon plan of attack against Iran. There's all kinds of plans and classified documents and strategic ideas to take out our enemy. Doesn't mean we've done it. So I don't know how that plays into what you just said, sir. But I get your point. 615-737-9986. Let's go to Sean, who's on the line. Hey, Sean.
Hey, Pam. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
So the one thing that I find kind of funny about all this, I work in law enforcement, and if you listened on that tape, he very specifically said a couple of words. This is off the record.
Yes.
So they should have turned that recording off at that point and all that should have been admissible in a court law.
You know what? That is now, of course, it hasn't been admitted into a court of law yet. This has been admitted into the public sphere at this point. But you're exactly right. When you say off the record, you turn off every device. But he should have paused to make sure everybody had done that at the same time.
Right.
But these days, when you say off the record, these days, I don't know that anybody takes that seriously anymore. That's what's so unfortunate. Go ahead, Sean. I'm sorry.
And then I was also going to say, that Trump, he likes to bloviate, he likes to brag.
He does.
And it's part of his natural way of talking about stuff. You listen to him on all of his speeches. He's always saying about, there was 2.5 million people at my, my speech, or there was 300,000 people at my speech, and he doesn't exactly know what the numbers are.
Right.
And he always
it was
exaggerates a little bit over the top.
The biggest crowd ever. Yeah.
But this is just more garbage from the Democrats. They will never prosecute anybody with a D next to their name, but they are sure as heck ready to prosecute anybody with an R next to their name.
Can't disagree with you, Sean. Thank you for your service, by the way, as a police officer.
Thank you.
Have a great
good day, ma'am.
All right, you too. Bye-bye. 615-737-9986. Let's go to Tim, who's on the line. Hey, Tim.
Hey, Pamela. How you doing this morning?
Fabulous. It's burning up out there.
Not so bad yet. Hey, my big beef with this is I hate seeing or hearing videos out of context. No context is given to this, and every time that I've heard it, it's been snippets, and I'm not sure if you guys are playing
I did. Yeah, I did play the full audio last half hour. I don't know if you just tuned in.
I did.
Okay.
I did, and I would like to hear the full audio. Maybe I would change my mind, but even what I'm hearing just lacks so much context. He clearly says he has a document that's classified, and it sounds like he wishes he could declassify it to maybe share it, but he can't. And
right.
So he understands the boundaries. He states his boundaries when he's talking about
All right,
it.
I tell you what, Tim, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop you right there because I think you need to hear the whole thing. And you're right. Context is important. So here's what I'm going to do for you and the other people that are on hold and for everybody else that's just tuning in. Let me go ahead and play the full audio for you. It's just 2 minutes long, I do believe. And so let's play that whole thing. That way you do have the full context. And remember, it's Donald Trump in the room, and this is at Bedminster, his resort there in Bedminster. So he's in the room. 2 staffers are in the room, a writer and a publisher. And what the writer and publisher are doing, they're writing the memoirs of Mark Meadows, the former chief of staff. So they're interviewing Donald Trump to put information in this book. So that's why they're recording this interview or what have you. That's why you have this audio. So listen so you can put it in context. I'll do that for you guys. Here you go.
That's right. Trying to overthrow your election.
Well, with Milley, let me see that. I'll show you an example. He said that I wanted to attack Iran.
All right, hold on a second. This concerns, now I'm listening a little closer. He said, let me show you. And it sounds like he's rustling papers so he can. So I'm going to rewind this because I had not heard that the first time I listened to this. So let me show you. Hold on.
Right, trying to overthrow your election.
Well, with Milley, let me see that. I'll show you an example. He said that I wanted to attack Iran. Isn't it amazing? I have a big pile of papers. This thing just came up. Look.
All right. Yes, Mac.
He said, let me see that, and
Yeah.
I'll show you an example.
And I'll show you an example.
So does that
he's-
mean someone was already holding these papers, looking at them, and then he said, I'll show you specifics. Let me see that? I didn't even hear that, too.
So here we go. So let's play. I'm going to play it all over. I'm going to start from the beginning again. This is yes. Maybe it was a staffer that had it.
Maybe, yep.
But the staffer doesn't have security clearance to look at it. Now, can the staffer hold it to hand it to the president? Hand me that classified document over there. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think, classified documents aren't supposed to be, near anybody that doesn't have clearance to see them, hold them, touch them, spit on them, whatever. Here we go.
To overthrow your election.
Well, with Milley, let me see that. I'll show you an example. He said that I wanted to attack Iran. Isn't it amazing? I have a big pile of papers. This thing just came up. Look. This was him. They presented me this. This is off the record, but they presented me this.
Off the record?
This was the Defense Department and him. Wow. We looked at some. This was him. This wasn't done by me. This was him. All sorts of stuff. Pages long. Look. Wait a minute. Let's see here.
Yeah.
I just found, isn't that amazing? This totally wins my case,
Mm-hmm.
Except it is like highly confidential, secret.
Other than that part. So he's not.
This is secret information. But look at this. You attack.
Look at this. We attack. Look. So it seems like he's showing them the actual information. Yeah, I mean, I'm a Trump supporter. I like Trump. I like the way that our country was when he was president of the United States. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know if this helps his case. He says it completely clears him. I'm not really sure how. Here we go. Let's finish this.
Confidential, secret. This is secret information. But look at this. You attack, and
Hillary would print that out all the time,
she'd send it to Anthony Weiner, the pervert. By the way, isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
I was just saying, because we were talking about it, and he said he wanted to attack Iran and what? These are the papers. This was done by the military, given to me. I think we can probably, right?
We'll have to see. Yeah, we'll have to try to figure out
See, as president, I could have declassified it. Now I can't, but this is classified.
Now we have a problem.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
It's so cool. I mean,
it's so cool, he said. So there you go. Now you have context. Now you have the entire phone call if you're just tuning in. Now what do you say? 615-737-9986. Bryce is on the line. Hey, Bryce.
How are you, Miss Pam?
I'm great. How are you?
Not too bad. There's just a few questions that I have. And I mean, for one, I'll start out by saying for anybody to put this in the same sentence with what Hillary did, we're talking president versus secretary of state.
100%.
Two different things.
Yeah, 100%.
Another thing is there are a ton of lawyers that are having a real difficult time. Do any of us know what it takes to have a president declassify something? Does he have to report to somebody, or is it just a simple fact he picks it up and walks out of the office with it?
There is an answer to that, and I don't have it in front of me. So let me pull that up. I believe he has to declare, I am declassifying blah, 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 blah. So.
To whom?
To the world. Good question. To Congress, to his,
really
to
and truly,
his
if
cabinet.
You think about it,
but he did. But he said on the tape. But he said on the tape, I did not declassify this. He said that.
Yeah, but you also know Trump. Trump will set bait. How many times did Trump set bait while he was in office to make not only the mainstream media, but also the left look absolutely crazy?
Yeah, but are you making excuses for Trump at this point?
No, ma'am, I'm not. I'm just trying to be logical about this stuff, because the thing about it is again, everybody wants to keep saying, well, Hillary did this. They didn't do nothing to her. She was Secretary of State. If anybody deserved to be drug out, yeah, it was her. Joe Biden.
I'm not disagreeing with that.
Papers and stuff.
Not disagreeing.
Whenever he was a senator, we're talking presidential level.
Not disagreeing.
And until the government can give a logical answer on what it takes for a president to declassify, because you've had Bill Clinton walk out with stuff. I mean, you had the Clintons walk out with furniture and everything else. You've had Barack Obama walk out with stuff.
And they returned it.
Bill Clinton didn't return the tapes.
Right.
They were found to be his.
But we're talking about Donald Trump right now. So we're talking about Donald Trump, and we're talking about So let me finish my statement, if you don't mind. Donald Trump on tape says, look at this classified document. Look, I could have declassified it when I was president, but I didn't. So this is off the record. This is highly classified information. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about Hillary. We're not talking about Biden. We're not talking about Pence. We're not talking about any of those folks. We're talking about Donald Trump and what he said on tape. Does this alarm you or no?
It doesn't alarm me none,
Right.
just for the simple fact, again, he likes to set snares.
Snares. So this is a snare for who?
For anybody that wants to take bait and run with it.
I think
the way
it's
that
a
the left has
snare
ran with
he
it.
set for himself. Unintentionally, perhaps. 21 after 10 o'clock, I'm Pamela Furr on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Several cars crashed, and they're blocking 40 eastbound just west of downtown. This crash is right there in the Nations, and it has the eastbound 3 right lanes of 40 blocked. And right now in our nation's capital, we'll tell you about the latest U.S. Supreme Court ruling that would have given state legislatures more power to dictate and run federal elections. These stories and more at 10:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much, Ken Weaver. It is 10:25. I am Pamela Furr on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Glad that you're here today on this hot Tuesday. We are talking about the Donald Trump audio that has been released. Now, someone asked, well, what determines, what does a president do when they declassify? Well, in all cases, a formal procedure is required so that all the government agencies know with certainty what has been declassified and what decisions memorialized, right? So that is important. So you just can't willy-nilly go, okay, at this moment, I declassify. All right, let me just show you this document. You can't do that. It has to be a formal procedure, right? But declassification cannot occur unless a designated official follows these specified procedures. This is the Supreme Court, by the way, saying this. But I understand what the last caller was saying. I mean, the president can declassify at any time. A secretary of state can't. A vice president can't. A senator can't. And I get all of that. But right now, what we're talking about is the president. And he said himself on tape, I could have declassified this, but I didn't. So this is off the record. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing. I'm not quoting verbatim, but I played that audio a moment ago. So I'm getting your response really at this point. 615-737-9986. Billy is on the line. So, Billy, do you agree with former President Donald Trump that this audio actually clears him of any wrongdoing?
Yes, I do.
Why?
You will look and break it down every few words carefully. He'll say, I feel like these people came there to interview him about Mark Milley to find out some stuff for his biography and stuff like that. And he just had probably one of his aides get a bunch of papers and where he dealt with Milley on doing things and stuff like that, and really did not know what was in it. Because first thing he says, oh, man, this is a bunch of papers. He don't say anything about any of it being classified. And then as he goes through it with them, he goes, oh, well, this is classified. Like, it almost shocked him to find that in there. And like, well, I could have declassified this, but I didn't. Those papers were with him. We don't know, they could have been in one of those boxes with all the papers and stuff, and have been another one that was found, and just be like a page two of it was classified. It maybe didn't get marked, but he's saying to himself, hey, see,
well, you know what? The way that you presented it right now certainly leads me to believe, or at least in my. All right, I'm gonna have to hang up because your noise is really, really loud. I apologize, Billy, but it paints a picture of the fact that Donald Trump didn't put all of these documents in boxes himself and take them from the White House. He didn't do that. His aides did that. So there's no intent here. So maybe it does exonerate him from an intent standpoint. I don't know that it exonerates him from going, oh, yeah, I do have classified documents here. I should probably give these back. It doesn't exonerate him from that standpoint, in my opinion. But I like the way that you presented it. It painted a little bit of a different picture. 615-737-9986. Let's go to Rita, who's on the line. Hi, Rita.
Hi there. Good morning.
Good morning.
I think this sheds a suspicious light. However, it may go either way. And at this point, we are all really kind of tired of this stuff. We've been 7 years of somebody trying to do Trump in, like what he did. I think that we need a statesman to get in there and forget about Trump. We can't handle this on and on and on and on.
It's a lot. We've been through a lot, Rita.
Where are the Republicans with backbone and statesmanship and get rid of all this stuff? The problem will be that if we get rid of all this, the media won't have anything to talk about.
They'll find something, Rita. Do not underestimate them. They will find something. All right. Thank you for your phone call, Rita. I appreciate that. Now, I know the phone lines are full, and we will take some of your calls. I'm reading some of the super text messages now. We are on Supreme Court watch as well, so we'll tell you and talk about some of the things happening with the Supreme Court today and other things. So stick around. I'll be back at 10:35. Right now, though, it is time for news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
10:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Right now, west of downtown, a big fuel spill is being cleaned up. This is going to be 40 eastbound. The right 3 lanes are blocked there in the Nations. Right now in our nation's capital, the U.S. Supreme Court ruling against state legislatures having more power to dictate and run federal elections. Terry Moran on the 6-3 ruling, authored by Chief Justice John Roberts.
This case comes out of North Carolina. A group of Republican legislators had argued that the congressional redistricting plan that they had passed was unreviewable by the state Supreme Court, that the Constitution gave state legislatures alone, no checks, no balances, the power to set the manner of our federal elections.
Overall costs of summer cookouts down about 3%. This according to a market basket survey by the American Farm Bureau Federation. It says a 10-person cookout will cost about $68 this summer. Definitely less than last year, but still about 14% higher than in 2021. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity, like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. Let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, what we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. It was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose. And that was distribution toward the end of life. When somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, call us for a free 15-minute phone call or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615-851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 10:35. Glad to have you with us today on Super Talk. We are watching the Supreme Court. Actually, I think they have handed down a ruling, and then the next time they're going to hand anything down will be on Thursday. So they have scheduled to do that again on Thursday, but we will continue to keep our eyes on the Supreme Court because their decisions can change everything, right? It can change the way we live. It can change the way we draw our districts in our states. They can decide whether something is a state's right or if it's a federal right. You know, it is important stuff when it comes to the Supreme Court. So we're keeping our eyes on that, of course, as always. Now, we have been talking about Donald Trump and the audio that's now been released. I guess CNN got their hands on it. So Monday night, he claimed that the audio of him discussing and showing off a classified document about potential military action in Iran actually exonerated him, adding that the special counsel was deranged. CNN released the information Monday night, last night. It's a 2-minute recording of the former president's meeting in Bedminster, New Jersey, where he talked about the documents he did not declassify before leaving office, but took those documents with him anyway. I want to remind you, because the question was asked, what's the procedure in declassifying information? Well, the deal is that the president has to, in a formal procedure, declare declassification so that all the government agencies know with certainty what's been declassified and what has not been declassified. It's important because if he says a CIA document is declassified and the CIA doesn't know that, they'll keep working under the idea that it is classified information. Vice versa, if the president does not declassify information, but the CIA thinks he has, I mean, we've got issues here. We've got problems. So in all cases, this procedure has to take place. And that was the question posed earlier. And so that's the information that I have from various legal sources at this point. Now, because the phone lines are full, because I'm getting all kinds of super text messages, I'm still getting in your opinion on whether or not this exonerates Donald Trump, even though Donald Trump says it completely exonerates him. I think it exonerates him from the notion of espionage. There's no way what we heard on this tape is espionage. He's not showing state secrets to another state entity, another like Russia or China or Israel or whoever. He's showing it to a writer and a publisher, allegedly. That's not espionage. That's just being stupid. 615-737-9986 is the phone number. Let's go to Randy, who's on the line. Hey, Randy.
Hey, Pam. How you doing?
I'm fabulous. How are you?
Well, doing great. And you kind of stole the thunder there. First of all, I agree with you totally that there is nothing in this recording that supports any type of espionage charge at all.
Right.
So 100%, that does exonerate him there. Second thing, though, if that's the case, you will hear in the recording, if you go back and listen, he said the military gave this to me, and he kept it for himself, right? Mm-hmm. Well, we don't know that, but let's say he did keep it, but the military gave this to me, and they packed it up for him. That means it's a personal record, or he has determined it's a personal record because they gave this to him. And there's already federal precedent, and I know you don't want to talk about Bill Clinton, but it's very true. This is an exact same case of the secret recordings that Clinton kept and were ruled personal records. And so now if we've eliminated the espionage charge and we're down to just personal records, this isn't even a criminal case anymore. So I completely agree with Donald Trump. It does exonerate him from anything that's even close to espionage. Mm-hmm. And then it's a personal record case, and it's all over at that point. federal judge has already ruled precedent.
Case closed.
Thank you. It's over. Let's move on to what's important.
Let's move on.
Joe Biden and $10 million from Chinese.
Well, and that really is truthfully what's more pressing these days than just a piece of paper that has no relevance at this point because Donald Trump is no longer president and no longer has that general in charge. And to anybody's knowledge, no one's planning on attacking Iran. But I bet you there are contingency plans for everything. And if you don't believe that, you're naive. They have to be prepared for anything and everything. This country's military is prepared. They have plans for anything and everything. They have scenarios for anything and everything. I grew up next to Fort Bragg and the Fort Bragg Reservation. I guess it's not called Fort Bragg anymore. What is it? Fort Liberty, I do believe is what it's called now. And trust me, every night you heard members of the military practicing their scenarios. The 82nd Airborne, oh yeah. 82nd Air, practicing those kinds of scenarios that they could be faced with, whether it was Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Israel, China, Russia, Japan. Go down the list. Go down the Korea, North Korea. Go down the list. 615-737-9986. Let's go to Tim real quick. Hey, Tim.
Hey, Pamela, I'm back.
Yes, you're the one that said I want to hear it in context.
Exactly.
Gotcha. All right, cool.
Funny thing, I had you on hold this whole time, and then you just picked up as soon as I picked up. So
all right.
Perfectly. So I heard the context of it, and it just gives me even more questions because that's an audio, correct? There's no video to this, right?
To my knowledge, there is no video.
Okay, so I'm playing the video in my own head, and I can see that going three different ways.
In all kinds of ways, yeah.
I can see staffers holding the documents like you said. I can see what they want me to see is him letting the person on the other side of the conversation hold the papers, and he takes them from them, which I don't think happened. And then I also see him saying things like, look, here it is. What do you know? Look at that. It's right there. And he's holding it up, but only showing her the back of the paper, just saying this is amazing.
See,
because he does.
And I think
he does refer to somebody on the side.
I honestly have to wonder if that is indeed what he did. He didn't actually show them. He didn't hand them the documents. Keep going.
It sounds like he refers to somebody off to the side, and he says, what do you think? What do you think? And they said, well, we'd have to declassify or something like that. And he's like thinking, maybe we'll look into that because this is what would exonerate me. Mm-hmm. The audio itself doesn't exonerate him. He's talking about a piece of paperwork with General Milley possibly being something that would exonerate him, and the discussion starts but stops quickly about maybe if we just declassify this that it would exonerate. And so there's a lot of things there that they're leaving to people's minds to wander, and ignorant people can come to a bad conclusion.
Right.
So there's context missing.
All right, Tim.
Hey, et cetera, et cetera. Now you know who this is.
Yes, I do. Have a great
day, Pamela.
Tim. I appreciate it. There are some people that just jump my you-know-what for the way that I say It's right. It's et cetera, right? It's not et cetera. And I say et cetera. And people just jump all over me. And I always have. That's a hard habit to break.
So what is it? It's et cetera?
Et cetera.
Et cetera.
Right? E-T-C-E.
Instead of X. Yeah, I say that too. Et cetera.
Et cetera.
Yeah. That's a tough one.
And so some people, Tim, have jumped me for that, saying I sound so ignorant and stupid for saying it.
Oh, please.
All right, let's go. One more call on this, and then we're going to move on, okay? Here's Gail on the line. Hey, Gail.
Good morning, Pam. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I agree with Randy, Tim, and Billy and you, but this is my one question before I go any further. When did this interview take place?
In July of 2021.
So that's before the Mar-a-Lago raid?
Correct.
So they're bringing it up now. Because my thought was maybe this just part of the discovery, but I'm gathering it's not.
Nope.
Listen, I love him. I love his bluntness. He doesn't play any games. His mouth gets him into trouble, but you know exactly what he's saying. But one thing I wanted to bring up to you, since I was wrong on the date, do you remember when he was president and there was going to be a strike against a country? I don't know if it was Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, I don't remember. And Congress got involved and thought he had to have permission and whatever. And I think, I could be wrong, Schumer called the enemy and let them know about this planned strike. And they're going after Trump for this? And then the Trump administration downplayed it. So I know the listeners are listening. I'm sorry, I'm 70 years old, so I get, but I just remember something happened and Trump's administration downplayed it. And I'm thinking to myself, that's treason.
All right, Gail, I appreciate your phone call. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for calling. 615-737-9986 is the telephone number. I want to move on here. If you don't mind, you can super text as well, because I do find this interesting that the DOJ has released a report on Jeffrey Epstein's death. You heard Ken Weaver report on this morning. And I think it's interesting because there's so many of us. I have to be honest with you. I also bought into the notion, and I might still buy into the notion, that Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself, that somebody else did it. Remember, all the rumors that were swirling around about the high-profile people that were involved with Jeffrey Epstein, and the fact that some of those high-profile people may indeed have engaged in sexual relations with underage girls, just as he did, and just as his former lover, partner, whatever, helped him engage in. And I don't know if you've watched any of the documentaries on Jeffrey Epstein or Gazelle or whatever, however you pronounce her name. I don't know if you have watched any of those things, but to hear from the women who were 100% manipulated, these young girls who were promised jobs and careers, these young girls who didn't exactly come from the wealthiest of families or the so-called right side of the tracks, who were manipulated into sexual relationships with Epstein. My heart just breaks for these women. 100%. They're now grown women. And that they never believed they got their day in court. But you have high-profile people who didn't want their names revealed that they had anything to do with Jeffrey Epstein or any of those kinds of salacious activities. So it seemed awfully suspicious when you have a jail who has a prisoner or an occupant on suicide watch end up able to kill himself. Regardless, the DOJ, remember this Department of Justice that we don't really trust, do we, these days? Making a statement that Jeffrey Epstein's 2019 death was indeed a suicide with no outside involvement. It was a report that was released today, years after, quote, conspiracy theories questioned why the notorious, well-connected pedophile was able to take his own life while in custody, and let me say again, on suicide watch. It happened at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Lower Manhattan in 2019, 4 years ago. While awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges, he hanged himself using excess prison linens, which he should have never had. Now, I'm willing, before I even go even deeper into this report, I'll even go this far, though. All right, maybe he didn't, someone else didn't come in and kill him. You know, a very laxed police jail area could have certainly assisted him, you know, purposely making sure he has enough linens if he wants to kill himself, purposely walking away, purposely not paying attention, hoping that he'll just get this over with. I think suicide was certainly mercy for this man. He would have been better off going to prison and experiencing some of the sexual deviant activity that he perpetuated on these young girls, if you know what I mean. That he should have suffered long and hard before he died. And the only thing, two things, if he made things right with God before he hung himself, that's one thing. But I mean, this is awful, but this is the way that I feel about pedophiles. I sure hope he's suffering now. We'll talk more about this coming up on WTN.
Got stop-and-go traffic. This is 40 eastbound between the Davidson and Cheatham County line. Also, the Bellevue Highway exit, 70S. And then a crash blocking the left shoulder, 24 westbound, right there at Harding Place, south of downtown. States do not have total control over the way they can run federal elections. We'll tell you about the latest U.S. Supreme Court ruling coming up at 11 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's crazy, I tell you, as a states' rights girl. It's crazy. But thank you, Ken Weaver. I appreciate that. We'll be listening at 11 o'clock.
You're supposed to use that voice. I do believe states'
Oh,
rights.
yeah.
States' rights. States' rights do supersede federal election law.
I'm not even sure I know. I don't know. Is it this voice? I don't know.
It's almost like you're a distant cousin of Mitch McConnell.
I'm the female version of it, right? Oh, Epstein didn't kill himself.
That's good.
I don't know, but I think I've run out of time. So we're gonna have to talk about Epstein on the other side. I don't know where the voice is. But.
Maybe over a glass of bourbon.
Little Bill Wild Turkey. And a cigar. All right, I'll stop because I don't even know. All right. Yes, news is next. And then let's dive in a little deeper on this report from that Department of Justice that we trust so well on Jeffrey Epstein and the report that came out. Stick around. I'm Pamela Furr on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Eleven o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Repeating, you've got stop-and-go traffic on I-40 eastbound between the Davidson-Cheatham County line and Bellevue. Also in Antioch, a crash is blocking the left shoulder, 24 westbound right there at Harding Place. And states do not have total control over the way they can run federal elections. That according to today's ruling from the U.S. Supreme Court.
In a 6-3 opinion written by Chief Justice Roberts, the Supreme Court sided with a group of North Carolina voters who challenged an attempt by Republican lawmakers to circumvent a state court decision that struck down a gerrymandered election map. The decision rejected what's known as independent state legislature theory that argues the Constitution vests sole power over elections with state legislatures. Justice Roberts said the clause does not insulate state legislatures from the ordinary exercise of state judicial review.
That's Aaron Katersky reporting. A new report today from the Justice Department's Inspector General lays out new information about the death of sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. In August of 2019, Jeffrey Epstein hanged himself with an orange noose fashioned from a sheet or a shirt when a horrified guard at the federal jail in Manhattan saw Epstein dangling from the bed. A new report from the Justice Department's Inspector General said the guard blurted out that he and his partner were, quote, going to be in a lot of trouble. Epstein's suicide followed an attempt a month earlier. And the report said the Bureau of Prisons failed to make sure he had a cellmate. The report also said Epstein made an unmonitored phone call telling officers he was calling his mother, who had been dead for some time. A new report on baby food today. What needs to be done to make it safer? Ariel Reschiff.
After randomly testing products from store shelves, Consumer Reports found levels of certain heavy metals like lead and arsenic in many baby foods appear to have gone down in the last 5 years. Heavy metals are not thought to cause harm with low exposure, but some advocates have argued for more regulation and lower levels in food. A 2021 congressional report raised alarm about the levels of heavy metals in baby food, and the FDA recently launched its Closer to Zero initiative, which aims to reduce them.
That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey there, Pamela Furr here. If you're wanting to be financially prepared for the future, I want to tell you about who I trust to invest my money. My financial advisor and coach, Paul Winkler. Paul and his team really helped me out with all the investing and financial decisions I've had to make over the years. And I know that his team can help you make sense of the investing and retirement planning world. It is also very important to me that they're a fiduciary, which is just a fancy way of saying they have to act in your best interest. And because of that, I'm required to tell you that I'm paid to say nice things about Paul, which can create a conflict of interest. But here is the deal. I'm a current client of Paul Winkler and his team, but I was a client of Paul's before I was asked to do this commercial. So that shows you how strongly I believe in their approach. Look, I reached out to Paul when I, quote, quit last year. We laugh about that, but he helped me guide my plan so that I could do that for a few months and figure out what I wanted to do when I grow up. Do what I did. Set up a free 15-minute phone call and see how they can help you. I felt so much better after working with them, and I'm confident that you will too. Go to paulwinkler.com. That's paulwinkler.com, or just call 615-851-1950. It is 11:06. Good morning. I'm Pamela Furr on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Glad to have you here today on this hot Tuesday. It's only 82. It's going to get hotter as the week progresses. You can count on that. 615. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. All right. As we look ahead, it looks like this. Well, here, let me pull it up here. I'm sorry, my computer just froze. All right, it looks like that the Department of Justice has ruled that lazy staff didn't check the cell in which Jeffrey Epstein was staying in or remove excess blankets. And that's why he was able to kill himself. And that's why there have been so many conspiracy theories surrounding this pedophile's hanging death. You know, I guess, again, if you believe that he was feeling quite guilty for everything, knew he was guilty, knew he was busted, that suicide was certainly merciful. Then again, if you believe hell is real, he's burning right now, suffering right now. So maybe you can take some comfort in that, if that helps. There's some interesting notions here. There had been rampant rumors, fueled in part, honestly, by Epstein's legal team that his suicide may have been aided by an outside party to cover up others' roles in the crimes, right? Don't know if that is the case, but the DOJ has been investigating his death and whether anyone but him was to blame for a year or so now, right? Several years. It's a 128-page report. It was released today by the Inspector General. And as you heard Ken Weaver report at 11 o'clock, that report finds that staff shortages, inadequate surveillance cameras contributed to his death, but there's no evidence anyone else was directly involved. Among failures by prison staff was to assign Epstein a cellmate after a failed suicide attempt on July 23rd. I have to be honest with you, I don't know that he had already tried it. In that case, he was found unresponsive with a cloth wrapped around his neck, but it didn't happen. So, with that in mind, I would think there would be 24/7 surveillance. Or, as I said in the last segment, police officers who don't like pedophiles, by the way, didn't care that they were lazy about surveillance. Let him kill himself. Efrain Reyes was his final cellmate. On August the 9th, Reyes was moved to the GEO prison in Queens. The report does not explain why he was transferred. I would think that would be important to put in your report. Why was he transferred and who transferred him? Otherwise, you're going to have people still asking questions. I don't know, like me. Reyes also died in December 2020, so you can't ask him. His lawyers say he was killed by COVID-19. How convenient. By then, Epstein had met with his lawyers on August the 8th and signed his last will and testament. After Reyes was transferred and after signing his will, Epstein was then allowed to make an unrecorded, unmonitored phone call from the prison, which, by the way, is a violation of prison policy. Every phone call is recorded. Every phone call is monitored. So what the hell, man? Epstein claimed to be calling his mother, but as you heard, Ken Weaver reported 11, and as I'm telling you right now, the report says, in fact, he phoned another person with whom he had a, quote, personal relationship. The report, by the way, does not ID that person. Don't you think that would be important in an investigation into the death of somebody? Don't you think that information is vital? He told, the police, I'm calling my mom, but she's dead. She was dead. Dead. So he wasn't calling her. He called somebody else. Epstein was locked into his cell at 9 p.m. on August the 9th. A search would have revealed that he had excess prison linens that were later fashioned into nooses. But there is no note of when his cell was last checked. How convenient. At 6:30 a.m. on August the 10th, he was found hanging from the top bunk, his body just 1 inch off the floor. Now, the Inspector General says that the blankets would have been seized had his cell been searched, as it was supposed to have been. So the Inspector General says the combination of negligence, misconduct, outright job performance failures documented in today's report all contributed to an environment in which arguably one of the most notorious inmates in the custody of that particular prison was left unmonitored and alone in his cell with an excess of prison linens, thereby providing him with the opportunity to take his own life. I say again to you, though, the jail staff or the prison staff probably, if I were the guessing kind, didn't care. He was a pedophile. He was a sex trafficker of young girls. Horowitz, that's the Inspector General, said the findings are troubling not only because the prison didn't adequately safeguard an individual in its custody, but also because they led to questions about the circumstances surrounding Epstein's death and effectively deprived Epstein's numerous victims of the opportunity to seek justice through the criminal justice system. Now, I do like that statement. Those girls were heartbroken that because of his death, they didn't get their day in court. Now, they got their day in court with Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell. They got their day in court with her. Some have been talking to documentarians, if you will. I encourage you to watch some of those documentaries. Those girls just telling the stories of what happened to them. My heart just aches because most of them were young. Most of them were poor, or at least on the other side of the tracks, not living in the greatest of neighborhoods in Florida and other areas of the country, New York, whatever. And they were manipulated into thinking that, well, and he did. I mean, he paid for education. He paid for travel. He paid for lifestyle. All of these things. And what did he want in exchange? Massages, sex, his kind of deviant kinds of sexual activities. with these 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds and 15-year-olds and 14-year-olds. This was a troubled, and I'm using a kind word, human being. And he didn't care because he had millions and millions and millions of dollars. And for a 14-year-old girl, 15-year-old girl, 16-year-old girl, the idea that they could travel the world with this man and still, I think one of the girls was an artist, like a true artist. And there were promises of gallery opens with her artwork. There were promises of traveling the world, displaying her art. And although I think she sold quite a few pieces of her artwork, she was manipulated into sexual activity with this sick human being. It's heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. So I agree with the Inspector General here when he says it robbed the victims of the opportunity to seek justice. It was merciful to allow him to die at his own hands or whatever. But I hope those girls are resting easy knowing that he's suffering now. He's suffering now. 615-737-9986. Let's go to Amy, who's on the line. Hi, Amy. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Miss Pamela. My problem is this with the whole story that the DOJ is spewing in this. I worked for a psychiatric facility that handled youth that were in forensic care. In other words, they were prisoners. And if we would have not monitored one of those inmates and they would have injured themselves or committed suicide on our watch, what should have been our watch, we personally would have been charged with malfeasance of our duty and potentially manslaughter.
Mm-hmm.
So where's the charges?
Good question. Good question.
This is not how the BOP, the Bureau of Prisons, works. They charge their correctional officers. They charge individuals, and it's not case closed for me. Not in the least.
All right, I'm going to look up here. Let's see, charged in Epstein's case. Because they may have been allowed to resign. They may have allowed, let's see, it looks like, those prison guards, it looks like they have been indicted, but it doesn't look like they were indicted for any kind of manslaughter, like you just said, or negligence. It was more of trying to falsify records in this investigation that they were charged with. And that's certainly a federal offense to do that, but that certainly isn't manslaughter, right?
That is not manslaughter. And the thing is, for me, if it's not a charge that's appropriate for the crime that they committed,
Sure.
which was malfeasance of their duty, then details are not going to be exposed in court.
Sure. Yeah. They dropped the whole case because the guards there admitted to falsifying records on the night Jeffrey Epstein killed himself on their watch. So there you go. That has it doesn't feel like enough, does it? And I bet those girls feel the same way you do, Amy. Thank you very much for your phone call. I appreciate that. 615-737-9986. Let's go to Ronnie, who's on the line. Hey, Ronnie.
Hey, I wonder if Justice Department that concocts the things that they have against Donald Trump, what problem would they have concocting this? And I was a officer for a long time.
You were a what? I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said. What?
A police officer.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you.
And, even though you had to go out and arrest somebody that had abused a child or beat his wife or anything else, you still had a job. And that job was to protect his rights, too. So I don't think all the blame can be laid on these guards.
Thank you very much for your phone call, Ronnie. I agree with you. I mean, we don't trust the Department of Justice these days, right? So, and there are still so many questions that I have, even as they release this report, this 128-page report. I still have questions. These guards were charged with, or they pled guilty to, falsifying records to make it seem like they were monitoring Epstein properly, but they really weren't. They're accused of falling asleep. They're accused of surfing the internet the night that Jeffrey Epstein hanged himself rather than checking on him every 30 minutes. Like I said earlier, though, their attitude may have been that they didn't care. It's Jeffrey Epstein. Let him hang. Let him do whatever he wants to do. It could have been that. I don't know that, but it could have been. I will tell you that their deferred prosecution agreements required that they each perform 100 hours of community service and cooperate with this federal investigation that just took place, the report that we got. So, I mean, 100 hours of community service for allowing Jeffrey Epstein to hang himself. It's 11:20 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Stop-and-go traffic has an 18-minute delay in effect on 40 eastbound between the Davidson-Cheatham County line and Bellevue. They're in West Nashville. And a Supreme Court ruling affects the power of state legislatures when it comes to redrawing election maps. Hear more coming up at 11:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much, Ken Weaver. By the way, did you hear that the MMA-type fight between Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg may be off?
Oh, imagine that.
But do you know why?
One of them backed down, maybe?
It's because Elon Musk's mom said, no, this is not happening. No.
What?
Yes, his mom has interfered. And can you imagine Elon going, but Mom,
I don't want you playing with that Zuckerberg kid.
This is really true. I'm actually not joking here. It was, let me find it here.
You should thank her, honestly.
Yeah, Zuckerberg might have taken him down.
He would have, yeah.
Because he's been training, right? He's like MMA training.
Well, he's a jiu-jitsu. He won a tournament recently.
He's like strong and in shape, yeah.
May Musk is her name, said in a response to a tweet, the fight has now been canceled, great relief. And then she doubled down by saying, I canceled the fight. And I will continue to say the fight is canceled just in case.
Zuckerberg ought to come back and say, protected by mommy. Run into mommy.
Elon. All right, so no joking, she said, fight with words only, in armchairs, 4 feet apart. The funniest person wins.
That's no fun.
That is no fun at all. That's what they're doing now with the whole back and forth kind of thing. But, Mom, I want to kick his ass. Mom, come on. All right. Anyway, thank you very much, Ken Weaver. News again coming up at 11:30. 615-737-9986 is the phone number. We're talking about Jeffrey Epstein. We're talking about the report that was just released from the Department of Justice, an organization that we all trust so much, right? I'm being sarcastic if you haven't figured that out. An organization that upholds the laws so well in this country under the Biden administration. I'm being sarcastic if you haven't figured that out. Let's go to Trent, who's on the line. Hey, Trent, welcome to WTN. So, do you think that Epstein killed himself?
Thank you for taking my call.
He didn't answer the question.
I don't have definitive proof, but looking at recent events, I would lean toward no, because that night it was like a perfect storm of events that happened for him to make it possible for him to kill himself. Supposedly. Mm-hmm. Now, my thing is, I don't care about the guards. I don't care about the report on the guards. My thing is this. We supposed to have the FBI, the finest law enforcement organization in the world. How does the trail stop when Epstein dies? There's a black book. There are records, phone records, financial records involving a lot of rich and powerful people. Where's the special counsel? Where are the hearings? If you look at a pattern, when Donald Trump, George Santos, any Republican does anything, there's no holds barred, spare no expense, special counsels. We're going to get to the bottom of it if there's, evidence or not. When high-level Democrats get in trouble, i.e. Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, whoever's involved in the Epstein thing, then there's no interest from the press to pursue justice. There's no interest from the FBI or the Justice Department to pursue justice. There's nowhere in the world you can tell me in America that nobody other than the woman, the madam, has been arrested for this crime. There's a trail of young ladies who were harmed, who are getting civil settlements, but nobody's going to jail for child trafficking.
Right. For sex trafficking with children, absolutely, yes. With minors. I hear you. And there is, strong allegations, although he denies it, with I believe it's Prince Andrew. So
yeah, everybody knows he did it, and he got punished by the royal family, but they didn't turn him. They didn't send him back over here to serve justice in America.
Or
I know there's diplomatic immunities and things like that, but I'm talking about the people here in America. the guy, Jamie Dimons, who facilitated it with the banking and the people who participated in it. Where are they? Where are the names? Where's the black book? Why is the FBI running down the trail? If you sell a pound of weed or a kilo of cocaine and they catch you, they say, hey, who's the next guy? And they keep following the trail until they get higher and higher and higher. There's no interest to follow the trail to these people.
And why not? Because you're talking about young girls. You're talking about young girls, but no one seems to care.
Because there are high-level business people and politicians involved in this, and nobody wants to pursue this. Where's the media? I mean, where's the media saying, hey, we're going to expose this? This is a big story. And nobody has any interest in exposing it.
Yeah, the only joy. Thank you very much, Trent, and I appreciate your passion about this as well. Those young women. The only peace that they have is knowing that Ghislaine Maxwell was sentenced to 20 years in prison for conspiring with Jeffrey Epstein. But I agree with you. Where are all the names, all the participants, all the party goers that may have had sex with these young women as well? Where is that? Did it even exist? Is my question. Did it exist? And where's all that information? Or are they holding on to that because Ghislaine Maxwell, of course, has the right to appeal what happened to her, the sentence? I encourage you, before we go to news, let me just say this. I encourage you, please, 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 go watch some of those documentaries that are out there and listen to what those girls have been saying. They may win in civil court, but does that bring them peace? I don't know. Doesn't seem like it. They want to see heads roll, and not from hanging themselves, but for actually going to court and being tried for these atrocities. It's 11:31. I'm Pamela Furr on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories, and the delay is not as long. There, stop-and-go traffic, 40 eastbound between Davidson, Cheatham County Line and Bellevue. It's only about 13 minutes now. That's down from 30. A ruling by the U.S. Supreme Court today says states do not have unchecked authority to redraw election maps. They sided with a group of North Carolina voters who challenged Republican lawmakers who argued the congressional redistricting plan that they passed was unreviewable by the state Supreme Court. Had it gone the other way, it could have handed state legislatures more power to dictate and run federal elections. And Volvo is the latest automaker to announce its future electric vehicles will adopt the North American charging standard, also known as the Tesla charger. That means starting in 2025, new Volvo EVs will be able to fill up on electricity at more than 12,000 Tesla supercharging stations. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity, like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. Let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, what we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. It was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose. And that was distribution toward the end of life. When somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, call us for a free 15-minute phone call or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615-851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 11:36. I'm Pamela Furr. Glad to have you on board today. 615-737-9986 is the phone number. You can super text us there as well. We've gotten a lot of super texts today, and I have not been able to respond to all of them. I am sorry. I am one person, and Mac is also busy, so he can't respond to all of them either, but I may try to do that a little later on this afternoon. Meanwhile, as we wrap up the show and Matt Murphy comes in here at 12:05, I want to tell you, I want to follow up on a story that I brought to you. I can't remember if it was last week or the week before. Do you remember talking about a North Carolina Speaker of the House in the state legislature in trouble, being accused of having, quote, degrading group sex with an ex-councilman's wife? There's more allegations out there. So listen to this. Although I don't like gossip. No. Where's my nosy girl? I think this applies here. This is more of a nosy girl story, I think.
Yes.
All right. North Carolina's embattled House Speaker allegedly used a secret camera hidden in a bush to spy on a local official whose wife he's accused of betting. All right, this is the Daily Mail, okay? This is very tabloid. I admit it. God's going to have to forgive me here. Tim Moore, one of the most powerful elected officials in the Tar Heel State, is said to have hired a mysterious goon to creep up to the home of his one-time employee, Scott Lassiter, under cover of darkness to plant the device in the shrubbery. Now this makes me paranoid. I wonder how many people do this kind of stuff. Isn't this crazy? The camera was placed in the flower bed in the wee early hours of June the 1st. The Lassiters 10th wedding anniversary. So I think I have this right. So you've got Scott Lasseter, and then you have his wife. The wife says they've been estranged for 3 years. There were legal separation papers that were filed, all of that. And then it was discovered later that Tim Moore, who is single, was dating Ms. Lasseter. Jamie, I believe, is her name. And now Scott Lasseter is saying, hey, it's because of you that our marriage fell apart. And so he's suing the Speaker of the House there in North Carolina. I think I've got the story right. So the caper backfired when Scott Lasseter, went to clear leaves from his driveway and spotted the tiny gadget, the tiny camera, which is seen for the first time in exclusive images that the Daily Mail has. So you got to go find this story in the Daily Mail. I'll share this to my social media a little later. Just in case you're like me, you pray for forgiveness for participating in gossip, but you read it first.
Cover your bases there.
Well, I can't, ask for forgiveness if I don't know all the details. we use all these excuses. Oh, God, please forgive me. Instead of raising the alarm, Lasseter says he switched the camera for one of his own to spring a trap for the prowler who was caught on film when he returned to the home 6 nights later to figure out why the camera wasn't working right and busted him. The intruder's image is included in this lawsuit, which accuses Tim Moore, again, the Speaker of the House, of having a sordid 3-year affair with Jamie Lasseter and then trying to bury the news by intimidating her husband. Lasseter's lawyers want to go after the mysterious John Doe next. That's who's in the camera, right? The person that actually placed the camera. But they don't know his name, and they don't know whether he was working solo or part of a team. So I guess, if you hire a private investigator, maybe private investigators will put up cameras. Not that I would know anything about that because my brother-in-law and sister are private investigators. Anyway, Lasseter's attorneys say John Doe is currently an unidentified defendant. We would like to identify him as soon as possible so that he can be named and served in Mr. Lasseter's pending civil action. The actions of the unidentified defendant have caused Mr. Lasseter a considerable amount of stress. Now, I don't know why it stresses you out, because if you found the camera like that, you know what I would have done? I don't know about you, McMorry, but I would have then performed for the camera. You're going to spy on me? I'm going to give you something to spy about. So I would do like weird things, just for fun. Or suddenly you'd see me dancing, with a broom. I'd come outside, just do something goofy, or start yelling at no one. Just for fun, or I'd look straight in the camera and do this. I can't do that on the air, but I would do that, or just something. I would put, my fingers. If you're watching on Super Talk TV, I'd do this
raccoon action,
that kind of thing, or whatever I would do, or I'd find some beauty queen. Take her in. I don't know. But I would do something. I would perform for the camera, knowing that it's there and sending a message that eventually they'll go, he knows that the camera is there.
Yep.
Let's see, lawyers want to go after him. The actions of the unidentified defendant have caused him major amount of stress. It's upsetting to realize that while he was sleeping in what he believed to be the privacy of his home, an unknown person was setting up a hidden camera only a few yards away, intending to capture him in this intimate setting. Again, we're talking about bushes outside the house right there at the front door. How intimate is your freaking front door? Stop it. Stop it with the drama. North Carolina, I want to remind you of this. North Carolina is one of a handful of states that actually allows jilted spouses to sue someone for interfering in their marriage. And so this guy's going after the speaker filed earlier this week. Lassiter's complaint accuses Moore of wrecking his marriage by enticing Lassiter into... If you've got kids in the car, just kind of sing or something. Group sex and other degrading acts. The veteran GOP politician has denied Lassiter's claims, as has his ex-wife, who says she separated from her husband long before the events described in his lawsuit. A long time ago. It is really creepy, though. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm looking at these pictures of this guy placing the camera in the bushes outside Lassiter's house. And it's captured like an eyeball, of the guy. And then you have him in a cap, a baseball cap, just placing the camera ever so delicately. I don't know. That is a little creepy. I'm not going to lie. But I would have performed for that camera. Lassiter insists the pair were still happily married when he began hearing rumors about his wife's illicit affair with Moore, a divorced dad of two whom she had gotten to know through her job as executive director of the North Carolina Conference of Clerks of Superior Court. When the Mrs. Lassiter told him last December that she was headed to the movies with a female friend, Lassiter, an assistant principal at a middle school, decided to surveil her. The gal pal was not a gal pal after all. It was indeed Mr. Moore, who is the Speaker of the House for North Carolina. A conservative lawmaker, 19 years her senior. What? He's older? Who has served in the North Carolina State House since 2002. The suit offers a blurry photo of the pair emerging from a steakhouse as proof of their secret date. By God, she was having dinner with a guy instead of with a gal pal. I am making fun a little bit.
Larry says, dang, I think I'll have a camera installed at Pamela's house.
I live a boring life. If you believe that, then I have some oceanfront property in Arizona to sell you. But I do live. Feel free. I will perform for the camera if you want to place it outside my house. Just make sure you place it in view, so that in plain sight. So I'll know it's there.
Yeah, you know it. Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to stalk me, let me know, please. Yeah, don't do that. I would not encourage anybody to do that. I do believe in the Second Amendment. Just saying. All right. After dinner, defendant Tim Moore drove Ms. Lassiter in the Lassiter's car to his residence in Raleigh, where they spent hours together. And upon information and belief, had sexual intercourse. But to my knowledge, there's no camera that captured that on tape. Mrs. Lassiter tearfully confessed that she had been involved in an extramarital affair with defendant Tim Moore. This is all in the lawsuit. This is what the lawsuit is stating. For more than 3 years, and that she had engaged in sexual activity with Tim Moore, including, and then it lists all the salacious things. The truth of the matter is, now I'm laughing and I'm, nosy girl gossiping over here, but you know what's sad about this is that a marriage is lost. And what's sad about this is that in North Carolina, now you have a politician, a GOP politician involved in something like this that doesn't exactly paint a great picture of the party in the state. You know what I mean? Now, he's single. He can date whoever he wants to. But if the other accusations are true, I mean, it puts him in a very embarrassing light. And I hate that in North Carolina because they just recently were able, as Republicans, to kind of take the state back on the state level with their state legislature. So this is a shame for sure. And again, you've got all these parties, just an ugly, ugly parting of people who loved each other at one point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I don't know if there are kids.
I don't know if those two had kids. Tim Moore, it says he's a divorced dad of two people. So it doesn't say here anything about the children possibly for the Lassiters. But if there are, I mean, it's sad. Now I'm looking at Mr. Lassiter's home. It's a picture of it. It's a nice house. And I'm assuming he lives in Raleigh. So that's Wake County. Anyway, sad. All right, it is, but I had to give you an update because I brought you the story a week and a half ago, right?
You'd be remiss to not follow up.
How can I call myself a news person if I don't follow up with the story? All right, thank you very much. It is 10 till noon. Matt Murphy in here to kind of tease us with what's coming up on his show next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Are you going to be okay over there, Matt Murphy?
I've
What's
hurt
wrong?
myself. Hold on.
Oh my gosh! And you think that you're going to be able to beat Dan Mandis at pickleball?
Radio's a contact sport. Talk radio is I pinched myself right in the
little sensitive skin between the thumb and the index finger.
Mm-hmm.
Poor baby. All right, so
Mandis would have called out as a result of it.
Workers' comp, all of that. So, yeah, I hear that Dan Mandis has challenged you to a pickleball game of some sort. I guess this is the equivalent of the Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg throwdown. You guys are going to do it in a pickleball court?
Yeah, I think that's a really good comparison.
All right.
You know,
are you the Mark Zuckerberg of this scenario? Or
have
are you
been
the Elon?
jiu-jitsu training?
Here's the thing. Elon Musk is what I know we're here to talk about Dan Mandis and Matt Murphy, but Elon Musk is what, 51, 52, 53, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And what is Musk? I mean, what is Zuckerberg?
Probably about the same.
No,
When you
he's
think are younger?
Mid-30s. I have him in
There's
mid-30s.
no way he's in. All right,
well, I'm surprised. You're closer than I thought.
We have now all hit.
He's 30, 38?
39, yeah.
No way.
That's way younger than I thought.
Wow. All right. So he was 12 when he started Facebook? Good Lord.
I saw all of you folks on social media saying, oh, Musk is going to destroy him. Musk is going to destroy him. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, not so fast, my friends.
No way.
I mean, he's got about 12 or 13 years on Musk.
Mm-hmm.
He's got all the time in the world to train his body in order to be physically fit, in order to get the job done. So I'm not so sure. I think people are allowing their political allegiances to lead them as to who they think is going to be the winner.
I mean, I don't disagree with you. However, the fight has been called off because Elon Musk's mother has stepped in and...
Are you kidding me?
I know.
Is that a joke? Is that a joke?
That's the truth.
Your mom stepped in?
His mom has stepped in.
You know what? That's probably what's going to happen to Mandis and I on the pickleball court. Mandis is not. Yeah, Danny, you can't do that. That's what's going to happen. Mandis is going down like the Titanic. Too soon? Too soon?
What? That submarine was not called the Titanic.
I'm talking about the actual ship.
The real ship.
No.
Right.
If I was talking about the submersible, that would have been too soon.
That would have, yes.
That's where my mind
Too
went.
soon? Yes.
I
Okay,
apologize.
no.
All right, Matt Murphy coming up at 12:05 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.